Already time for the second leg of Racing's Triple Crown, the Preakness Stakes on Saturday afternoon. A shot at redemption for Epicenter, who finished a very good second as the favorite in the Kentucky Derby. Nick Tammaro here, joined by Darin Zoccali to take a look at the Preakness. One of my things I most enjoy in racing, Darin, is the quick turnaround from the Derby to the Preakness. I am not in the camp of elongating the Triple Crown. I love how quickly it comes back.
Yeah, so do I. I've always been more of a traditionalist, and I'm certainly not going to side with the people that have a knee-jerk reaction to the Derby winner not being here, and that being the major catalyst or the major reason why it needs to be changed. I also don't like the idea that racing should conform to the weakening of the thoroughbred breed and the fact that we're trying to run these horses less and less and maybe breeding them to not be at the same level of durability as they were 20 or 30 years ago. Other major sports, Nick, they make changes all the time, but they do it because the athletes are getting better and stronger and they're finding more ways to beat the game. I think taking the opposite approach and making things on the surface you would identify as easier in order to conform to trainers identifying that horses can't be trained and run as hard, I think that's the wrong way to go.
Couldn't have said it better myself, and I completely agree. Well, one guy who seems to never shy away from running his horses, especially in big spots, is Steve Asmussen, the all-time winningest trainer in North America, and he has Epicenter going postward. I think Epicenter probably drifts down to about 4 to 5 in this race. I think he's going to go off a very, very heavy favorite. And Darin, I mean, it's going to take a lot to beat this guy.
Yeah, I mean, he should. I mean, even money, you don't want to say that that's fair value on any horse, but I mean, even money means he's got about a 50% chance to win. And he absolutely does have about a 50% chance.
That feels conservative.
Yeah, conservatively speaking, absolutely. The other thing with Steve Asmussen that I would say is this horse is not a grade 1 winner yet. They want to get the horse a grade 1. They're coming back in 2 weeks. They identified the fact that the field was probably going to come up a bit light. They were correct in that. It's a prime spot. The 2-week turnaround is always a question. And maybe this year you can add a little bit more to it because this horse ran a really grueling Kentucky Derby, making an aggressive move into a strong pace and then fighting tooth and nail with the talented Zandon all the way down the stretch, only to get picked off at the wire. Can he bounce back in 2 weeks? If anybody can get the horse ready, it's Asmussen. There's no question this is the best and most talented horse in the field, and it's probably not even close.
Yeah, I completely agree. And my thought has always been, and obviously we're not trainers, but horses are conditioned to be at peak fitness for the Kentucky Derby. And so in most cases, when they are, you want to bring them back as quickly as possible. You know, it will fade very, very quickly. And so I think Asmussen's camp almost, without obviously being too cheeky, had an eye on this horse running back quickly and potentially even trying all 3 legs of the Triple Crown. So let's knock out one at a time and hope that he gets the job done here. I mean, as you said, his Derby was just sensational. It was one of the better losing efforts that we've seen in probably the last 10 runnings. I think going back to Bodemeister, I think it was the best losing effort since his, as he moved aggressively into that very, very fast pace. He moved precisely too early, but Joel Rosario, of course, wanted to give him every shot to win, so I don't blame him whatsoever. It was just an unfortunate circumstance. The second choice in this race is a horse whose connections actually opted to skip the Kentucky Derby to run in the Preakness. That is Early Voting, who represents the same camp that took down the Preakness 5 years ago, that of Chad Brown and owner Seth Klarman's Klarovich Stables. Do you make Early Voting's, we're obviously New York guys, do you make Early Voting's chances decent enough? He feels like the second likeliest winner to me.
I would agree. I would, if Epicenter for any reason doesn't show up in this particular spot for something that we can't possibly foresee from paper, this is the next most likely winner of the race, just simply because I think tactically he's going to have an advantage over some of the other major players in here. I don't buy into the argument that a horse like Armagnac is quick enough to go with this horse early. Armagnac, when he's running against serious horses in California in the San Felipe and the Santa Anita Derby, you didn't see nearly the same amount of early speed as you did in his 2 wire-to-wire wins. I don't think if Early Voting puts the pedal down out of the gate that he can really run with this horse early. And I think Chad Brown has to look at this and say our best chance to win is to go out there and get a clear lead and take them as long as we can, as fast as we can. He's second race back off the layoff. Brown's a master about circling races and getting these horses fit and ready for them. And the fact that he skipped the Derby and pinpointed the spot to take a shot, you have to think that Early Voting is going to be 100% on top of his game. And I have no doubt that turning for home, he's the horse that's going to be on the lead.
Yeah, I think as you said, the tactics are clear. You go, you take him as far as you can. And one thing I'll say to early voting's credit is he has flown out of the starting gate in his last couple of races. He was helped last time out that Morello really didn't break well, but he broke so quickly. He would have been in front in that race no matter what. And if that situation plays out, I think it takes advantage of what could be his edge, which is that he is the speed of the speed on paper. Count me among those who's probably not thinking that Irad and Jose get into a big battle on the front end, with Armagnac being the other main speed. I suppose Fenwick could show some speed. He's really only shown speed once, and he's not nearly quick enough to keep up with early voting. Well, of course, we have to talk about Secret Oath, who is the Kentucky Oaks winner, coming back here for D. Wayne Lukas in search of a record 7th. It's not a record, I actually think, but it would be a 7th Preakness, which is a lot of races. Can the filly do it?
She can. The thing with her, like if you compare her, you hear comparisons about her with Swiss Skydiver recently, Rachel Alexander recently. This filly is not as brilliant as them. She's not as quick in terms of her early foot. She needs a bit of racing luck to navigate through traffic and have things go her way in order to be able to get the job done. Against fillies, she easily does that. It's no problem because she's the best filly. Against colts, though, it's a little bit different and it's a little bit more of an ask. And we saw that in the Arkansas Derby, where she faced adversity. She had a tremendous run, made a huge move on the far turn, but being able to sustain that run when not having the luck of winding and weaving through traffic and have things go your way, it's hard to sustain that run, that last furlong coming down to the wire. We saw that in the Arkansas Derby. My fear would be that something like that would happen again. Price is going to dictate what I do here, Nick. Is she 6-1 and ignored on the tote board? Then she's a play for me, and that's fair value. Is she 7-2 because everybody likes betting on fillies in spots like this? Then she would be a horse that I would try to take a play against.
Yeah, there is sort of an odd fascination with fillies taking on males, and quite honestly, in dirt racing, there's not the parity that there is in turf racing, where we've seen fillies have a lot of success over the years. Take nothing away from some of the great fillies we've seen that have run well against males on dirt. She is a horse that if you crossed out the F in her PPs and put in a G or a C, she'd be twice the price she's going to go off, in my opinion. So I think that the fact is she's won some big races. There's no question about it, but she is a horse that needs to run a little bit faster, a little bit better in order to contend here. One more to talk about, the One Simplification, who comes in off a 4th place finish in the Kentucky Derby, the only other Kentucky Derby starter besides likely race favorite Epicenter. Simplification ran a race that I didn't expect. I expected him to run fine. I didn't think he'd do it from coming as far back. Credit to Jose Ortiz for sensing that the pace was just incredibly fast early. Simplification is a horse who really hasn't run bad in his entire career, Darin. Is he a little overlooked?
He is. I was going to say, I don't think people give this horse enough credit for how good he might actually be. Now, the question that I have is, if you go back and you watch the Derby and you make your trip notes, with the exception of the winner Rich Strike and Tawny Port, who actually also had a fantastic trip in the Derby, you can make an argument that Simplification had the next best trip. He was a little bit wide coming off the turn, but he really did not face any issues where he was starting and stopping and starting and stopping. Nobody kind of stopping in his face where he had to really make aggressive moves and weave around traffic. He stayed clear of all that. And he was in a spot where at the 3/16 pole where I thought he had a chance to win. And he just wasn't able to run down the two horses that had done a bit more work earlier in the race. For me, that was probably as good as he could have possibly run in that race. And I don't know if I could take a much shorter price on him coming back in the 2 weeks here.
Yeah, he probably tops out distance-wise at or around 9 furlongs. And I think is a placing chance. I could see myself maybe trying to one punch the exacta underneath Epicenter, and even underneath early voting, should Epicenter maybe not have the same gusto that he did 2 weeks ago in Louisville. Well, Darin, that was very, very good. And we'll see how we end up with the Preakness Stakes.
We will. I will mention that Skippy Longstocking is going to be the long shot that I include on my tickets. I don't think he can win, but I think this is a horse that ever since he's got around 2 turns that the light bulb has gone on, he's figured out a few things. And in the Wood Memorial, he was wide on the far turn, moving with Mo Donegal, switch leads late in the stretch, and then kind of picked up horses late. I think out of all the closers at a price, he's the one that might be able to get onto your exotic tickets to maybe spice things up a little bit.
There we go. That should be an exacta that returns a few shekels for sure. That has been a look at the Preakness Stakes. For Darin Zoccali, Nick Tammaro, make sure you're playing along with us at twinspires.com. And until next time, best of luck.